Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 9.11. Alright, big thing here. I went in after the last episode and that economic crisis thing and looked at some of the stuff. And yes, we were being hit by the economic crisis, and I specifically was working not to be. And I went and looked at the code, and at least my understanding of the desire of the code, it's really sort of messed up. I don't know whether it was Oh My God or Das G was coding that. I think it was Oh My God, but the 1937 level checks did have the, and each one of them needed it, a not 1938. If you have a not 1938, so it won't happen in 1938, and maybe I'll have to go on and change it to add in 1939 as well. But I don't think it's just anything. I think the way it code is anything 38 and later it won't happen. So when we go over 450 in 1938 now, it won't come up, at least it shouldn't, and I tested it a couple times and been playing with this for a while now. Almost 4 hours. Yeah. No, maybe like 3 hours. But looking in and digging in, also looking around at some other stuff too. So I think I have it coded right. And I'm pretty sure I had the latest version of 9.11, so that we shouldn't, or so you guys may be facing this too, so you shouldn't be getting, my understanding is the economic crisis in 38, because you start really getting in should be historical year dates is 39 for Austria and 38 for Austria and 38 for the Sudetenland, 39 for the great bulk of at least the industrial part of Czechoslovakia. Slovakia here, the part that ends up as a country, well, the rest of it is very unindustrialized. So you can look, and yeah, there is a few little centers here that may go to Hungary. I'm not sure. Probably, but although it just says 1 here, I know it's like 2 or 3 for this, but it's not much. And so that, along with other things, can really balloon up past 450 and should be past 450 in 1938. So 1938 and 1939 should have the same set of conditions of not going over 650 in ICs. So been messing around with that. We're gonna try this now. And broadcasting event. Oh, and I also went in and looked at the code. Just decided to fire the Railway Tycoon right away. Electronics here. Let's do special forces. Oh, do we do light infantry branch? Yes. Things will be slightly different, just replaying. I don't get exact same text or whatnot. Yes. We're trying to put good relations with Finland. Want them in as early as possible into the Axis. No, we'll just take yours eventually. I know we're going down 30 by every day, 33, but that's okay for the moment. We're now starting to substantially get sort of watching out for that one. Get that. I'm going to see if I can sell much more supplies to the U.S. Okay, and that's a motorized support units. Okay. Cancel motorized support units. Yeah, we're gonna try to do 38s. Paratrooper activation. There is an event that will give us a bonus to researching that. Sometime, I think it's in 38, but don't know. Well, let's sort of wait for that. We're not going to build those right now. Right away. If we finish the mountain unit training, we could do that. But let's look at other things. We finish the research before. Oh, we don't need this. We need to stop that. SS motorized. Starting to shift some forces over to the Polish border now. As my friend Django was asking me about, yeah, how many divisions should I have for the invasion of Poland? And I asked him, have you seen my series before? I know he has, but I'm an instinctual player. So you asked me, well, how many armored divisions should you have ready for the invasion of France? I'll go, I have no idea. Now, we'll go over, before getting ready for Poland, and I think I did that in the last series, and maybe the previous series, but like before the invasion of France and before the invasion of Poland, sort of go through an OB special that, you know, I click on the different HQs and everything else, so you can sort of watch it and get an instinctual idea, or you know, or if you want to, you can watch it and stop it and count all the divisions up. I don't know how many I have. I just build a bunch, sort of go with gut feeling. I'm, you know, gut feeling, instinct. There's some, you know, conscious, subconscious understanding of how many you have and that kind of thing, but I can't put it into a number if asked, generally speaking. So I don't know whether it should be 50 or 150 or whatever. Sorry about that. I'm not the best person to ask on those kinds of questions. Okay, we have, let's see. Yeah, we can do grand battle plan. Not that I don't want to be helpful, but it's just not the way my mind works. No, we're thinking about invading. Okay, Brazil. Can we sell a bunch more supplies to the US of A? It looks like they may even want. Okay, we will do that. I'll accept your trade deal. If I'm going to invade Brazil, and it might happen, it'll be a long time off. We've gone over 450, and we've yet to have the thing happen. Okay. Secretary of Public Information. Bunch of those good, being researched. Right. Now, Flying boat prototypes, very good. And yes, it's grayed out. We'll upgrade our close air support so it's not too out of date. Go with Columbia's. Let's have our warheads improved there. Okay. I know it's with an enemy that we're going to be fighting, but it'll be a while before we invade. Naval bomber, so let's... yeah, we'll go with it. That's the new schools HQs. Probably leave the school HQ there eventually, but take out the elite divisions or divisional headquarters and the elite light infantry at some point and use them somewhere. Okay, no one go see. How is Japan doing out here? Well, as we know, Japan did lose, or the their ally got their asses kicked up there, but it looks like they're taking that back. They may get enough back to give it back to them as their core ally. I don't know if the AI will do that or not. And yeah, they're sort of stuck here. Sometimes the AI does really well, sometimes not so well. Well, no, not yet. Let's see, can we start selling to the Soviet Union? No. Spain is still just sieging Fortress Madrid. They over do these things. You know how much I love Black Ice, but I have my disagreements. And it's quite true that the AI may not defend Madrid well enough, and they did try to turn it a bit into a fortress and stuff historically, but it's just sort of overdone that it's so bad that they can't overrun it when it's just them. That's just pathetic. Throwing a few extra fortifications, fine, but okay, and truck and prime. Yeah, let's do camouflage designs. I already did have those, but yeah, there we go. Increase that. So how are we doing with production? Okay, so we've got through, this is sort of the last really sort of bunch, and those are in provinces that have heavy industry in them, so they're multipliers. We're really now getting into these other units that we hope to get in production or produced before the war starts. New industrial zone advance, which adds even more ICs to us. I'm going to definitely try to keep it, well, we're under 600 or so. We know 650 is the target, or the max, before we start having negative repercussions. Yes, all right. Okay, rare materials, refining good, that will help with this is the thing we've been trading for, so got through all of those, industrial techs and radar advance. So let's look at radar. Okay, 39. Oh, 39, so we can sort of wait on some of those. But let's come down here and we can do radar ground control. Yeah, we'll do bomber site. Bombing site. In mid-late 38, we're going to start building a few air radar bases. Sorry. There we go. A little bit faster. Don't want to quite race through it because it just ends up stopping. I want it to go, but I want a semi-sedate pace. Okay, monumental architecture has advanced. And so we shut that down, but I think it'll be next month before we get the event that then fires the ability to choose a new building. Okay, so we got that. So let's do gun turrets, and we'll do bomber crew layout. Okay, welded plate armor construction, good. Now decryption machines. We'll be able to decrypt enemy communication. We might as well communicate better with their tanks. Oh, and what else is armor plate thickness? What do we want? Overly armored French tanks? No. Let's improve armor cars. No, we have even more. Okay. Okay, naval HQs, that's good. We should stop that for now. Don't really need to rush that. What are we doing here? Okay. Here we have a bunch of stuff we want to do. So, let's start here with medium artillery. And aerial mine. That is under bombing, isn't it? And yes, one and done. Okay, and what do we have here? Ready for naval. 2, yes, and we will take this. Gives us this Reich Marine Post. I don't really know what supposedly the difference here is between. I guess we can always look it up. Marine Station der Ostsee, Marine Gruppenkommando Ost. Well, East Sea, the Baltic, I guess. Ost, I don't know. So I normally just put these guys here. Come over here and we'll move him further east. Soviet Union, third show trial, new ambassador. Ah, yes. This is. We want to see the plans. And we want to see the plans. And Hanna Reich. Okay, as we can see here, the way that popped up. 1938 Berlin Automobile Show. Exhibition, whatever you want to call it, showing off the German automobiles, rather sort of big and popular thing. Hitler's normally in attendance on these, so that's a big thing, but we get a little bit of bonuses to two things, the automobile thing. And helicopters, Hanna Reich here at the show. It flies this helicopter. It's a looks sort of like an airplane, has the engine there in a conventional sort of airplane location, but the drive shafts send up the power to those two things. Those are rotors out there, and it uses an airplane conventional tail instead of a, the second, or in this case it would have been the third spinning little wheel to stabilize it. But so you notice, like the Chinook helicopter, Vietnam, has one set of rotors in front and the second set in the back. Just did it side by side. They're just so used to standard aircraft body types, and so they were thinking in those kind of things. But this is sort of the first indoor flight, and he flies around one of the big indoor stadiums for the people, and helicopters gain 80 from that. Because Germany is definitely pushing the envelope there. Sikorsky's in the U.S. at this time, I believe. Doing some developments, and he gets a good working helicopter, I think around 45, that they actually use some of them in Burma, I think. Obviously sort of the famous sort of from the MASH TV series in Korea a little bit later, but that, and of course the Germans do get some helicopters late war as well, and probably a little better. They're probably the best helicopters at the time, but they do have some things that Sikorsky ends up doing a lot better. Okay. Okay, we're in 38. We can appease everybody, which reduces revolt risks. Now we have let's see. 4.5 reduction from the Führer, the Außenminister, foreign minister, and from propaganda. Propaganda, of course, make a war economy. We have a +1, so that's 3.5. If we were to do police buildings, that would be revolt risk by 5%. Now, I don't need the goon squad, send in the security goon squad, because I already have a goon squad. It's called the SA. And it's massive. Like I say, I'm reading a new book on it. The SA. I'm sort of just after the Rome Putsch. In 35 or so, or 35 roughly, what they do. Chapters sort of, they're not necessarily like, it's not a chronological this happened and this happened. Sort of looking at periods of it. First was, in the 20s, and then sort of very late 20s, but mostly the early 30s, coming to power, and Rome, and now we're sort of post-Rome putsch, looking at that era. And so the different chapters focus on different elements, and they're starting to cover the essay shifting to its new role in National Socialist Germany, and it continues to be a role. The author has I guess he is studied or is concerned about use of violence, political violence, and other things. And so the essay for him, is part of this sort of greater topic. And yes, the essay very much is violent. But and he does bring up that even in the early, very early elements, and I'm talking, before the beer hall putsch, so in 22 and whatnot, the Nazis weren't even putting up any candidates for elections, because one, I think they knew they would lose, and they didn't want to have that happen. But just they were sort of claiming to be protesting, sort of the democracy and everything else, but are being a political party. So why are you a political party without running for election? Well, and they were using, Hitler and others, but Hitler heavily, as a speaker. So they were doing whether it's a beer hall or more formal stadiums that Hitler's going in and speaking his political thoughts. So he's gaining followers, or at least getting awareness out about him and the Nazis. And then the essay, which are very much in their early days. Well, before the brown uniforms don't show up until the rebirth of the essay, after Hitler gets out of Landsberg prison. They're not brown shirts at the time, but they are swastika armband, swastika flags. I think they mainly were wearing gray jackets or something. But even through it was not until I think it's 28 do they start getting sort of official, and you have to buy eventually uniforms from official sources for the SA, for all Nazi stuff. But so early on, through most of the 20s, it's sort of bring your own brown shirts and make your own uniforms to some degree. But as a group, they're a walking advertisement, and this is what the essay really sort of in a shifting, and I look at, because we're looking at 36 and beyond, the shift that the essay is doing as a training element for men that are going in the army, but they're also state enforcers, and very much enforcing the Jewish boycotts. And they especially once Rome is gone, the Nazi Party and everybody else wants to mostly stop SA violence. I say mostly because you have Kristallnacht, which is mainly an SA night of of violence. But there's continuing local use of violence. Just in the book read about where out somewhere, some farming community, it doesn't, in a Protestant zone, it sort of matters that it's Protestant. Guy gets to be from the neighboring town, gets to be the mayor of the other town or whatever, when somebody has to resign or something. And so, but he's an SA guy, so he starts bringing his SA into this other town that's predominantly Catholic, but it's in a general greater or Protestant area. And so they're coming in and sort of terrorizing the town and arresting people and whatnot. So, but this is something that it's sort of a localized situation. No one told this guy to go in and do this stuff. It's just he's sort of the local boss, and from they mention the towns, but they're really small communities where like they have a school, so this is a town with a school for children, not schools, so it's not a city or anything. And so he's doing his thing, and I think he's just sort of doing his own thing. No one's telling him to do it, and he's harassing the Catholics in the next town. So there's that kind of stuff going on, and this is sort of scaring the German populace, and particularly the middle class. And Hitler doesn't, and the NSDAP, as opposed to the SA, the NSDAP doesn't want to scare the people, because now they're in charge. Especially this is, at this time, this is more like 35. They're in charge now. They've been in charge for a couple of years. They've gotten rid of Rome. People are pretty happy with them. They don't want the army to get, feel that they gotta, do a coup against the government. So they're in charge. But with all that being said, they want that SA presence, one, to just be, and I think it's important, to sort of a walking billboard. You're in a uniform. You're marching around. Or whatever. You're you got your armband. So you're showing presence always, and they are continuing a lot of the Jewish boycott actions, in which a lot of the time, from my understanding, is that they stand peacefully in front of Jewish businesses with signs that are very objectionable and trying to do a boycott. But they won't, to the best of my understanding, and I'm sure there's isolated incidents, they're not necessarily beating up people who go into the boycott. And it's not saying this is okay or good or anything like that. It's just trying to explain to you my understanding of what was going on. So they weren't trying to be, because they're trying to, Hitler was very much trying to go, shifting from being the street fighters to being sort of the vanguard of National Socialism kind of thing. And so that they're doing that. And so they're having this sort of presence that is mostly to try to reassure the people that, hey, we're in control. The communists aren't going to be rising up. We're going to maintain order within society. And order within society is without randomized violence by SA people. And a lot of the stuff that is sort of going on is sort of drunken SA men being stupid and silly. And although they're not normally arrested or put in jail for it, sort of within the SA, they're trying to come down on these guys and get them under control. So that's sort of some of their shifting. But so they have this sort of, whether it's a violent or a threat of violence, maybe I should say, of action going on a daily basis. But it's also a sort of walking presence that the National Socialists are here and in charge. So we don't need, because we already have a security thing, but I just sort of was looking at that. Consumer goods during peacetime down by 2% for a year. Police buildings, Reich could send in the goon squads to do just that, but we don't. I see efficiency is down 3%. That's down 7%, so it's down less. This is tough. So I don't want any revolt risk. No, I just clicked away from it. Or any revolt risk in any town in which there is any resource or any ICs. I know I can move the SA around, but we'll get police buildings, which will lower here. Isn't that a police center? Of course, we could build more, but we should get some of those. I already say what the hell. Let's do this. Okay, research efficiency is up by 3%. It's down by 2.5%. But we get reduced consumer goods, and we're already down at 43, almost 44. But that'd be another 2% down. Instead of 7% up. We don't want to do that. Another 5% on ICs. Or negative 2%. We're gonna do the police buildings. We're gonna try this out here. So I'm gonna do something a little different than my normal. And yes, air bases. Air bases, air bases, air bases. So we have done the police buildings. We're down at now 34%. Okay. Okay. Industrial production has advanced. That is good. And we will stop that, which that increases our ICs even more. And small fuel tank research is completed. That's grayed out. Well, let's do twin engine armament research. And we still have some more fighter. Let's do fighter bomber prototypes as well. Now, Victor Luntz in Italy. Because we sent him down there. He goes down, travels to Rome also. Hess goes to Rome as well, so that's, but this is more of a part of the SA chain of events looking at him. So he's out there traveling, watches a big parade of black shirts with Mussolini while there, then goes off and travels to Italy. Build new, construct new industrial zones, yes. Take command, I thought we already did this. Maybe not. I played this through a couple of times very recently, as you sort of know. It was stating as such. Okay, I'm a little confused as to what we've had and not had. Okay, first let's look at, we're doing entertainment shows, small heroic tales, and small news and politics. We're going to go with news and politics. That will be what we do for the and for Polizei here, that will be police centers. Level 5. Ooh, that'll be good, but I want to see what building we want to do as well. Imperial seat of government's very good. Central Intelligence Agency is good as well. We're currently doing Education University, so Imperial War Ministry, that's good for the war, the organization. So we want to do that for the war, definitely. But the war is at least a year away, if not 2. We may wait till 40 to do it. Not sure on that, but that is my inclination currently. So it really sort of comes down to, I mean, Foreign Ministry, that's good, and we'd take that, but leadership modifier 2%, research efficiency, national unity, territorial pride, ruling party support. Imperial, because I think Imperial seat of government is good because, see, we're still just looking at 38%. I'd love to get, to the 50+% of political support. So what we want to do here is we want to do both of these at the same time. Imperial seat of government and news and politics. The two that we could afford. The other one would be more expensive. And yes, build this because it's gonna crunch a bunch of our money. Okay, so That's from the Imperial Student Government is why that jumped up. Okay, so we can see some, now we have some revolt risk in some places. But I wanted to see that before. Ruling party support, that is good. Takes a little bit to show up. Okay, so that ain't bad. This is probably a good decision. We jumped up there as well. During a speech in the Reichstag, der Führer describes the protection of the rights of the Germans living in Austria and Czechoslovakia as Germany's vital interest, and stated that it is committed to liberate 10 million Germans living abroad. Okay, so Poland, Czechoslovakia, Austria, Switzerland, and Italy all gain threat from Germany. I look at that is this part of German-speaking Italy as well as like Trieste and other places. I don't know the German-speaking level down there, but it had been part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Okay, so we're going to now go. So police center with level 5 in Hanover, Dortmund, Munich, Dresden, Breslau, Königsberg, Postbus, Schweinfurt, Nuremberg, and Wilhelmshaven. So we'll do that, which will help on our revolt risk. But I'm planning on only doing this once. We'll see, and the OKW. Now we have this structure here. I don't understand the thinking on this. I really don't. This obviously uses a generic HQ symbol, and this is using a OKW symbol, and this is the Stab Wehrmacht Führungsamt. Slowly learning German, sorry guys. So I'm surprised that this isn't, because the OKW is really the thing that's over everybody else. And so this is sort of the central, this is sort of the central thing in charge of everything. And I don't know. We're going to give it to that because that uses the OKW thing and give it a higher headquarters. Like I said, I don't know. Well, this is the home army. But of course we can't have a supreme command over a supreme command or whatever, so it's we're maxing that out. Okay. Down a bit there as well, as we've shot up. And resources. Okay, well, we got some British blueprints stolen. That led a bomber crew to layout level 1. I think that's what we were researching, was it? Bomber crew. Yeah. So we have that now. Superchargers. We'll do that. Hopefully that'll be good. The SDP Ausweis, sorry. Just, I thought this was interesting. To an American, part of it's a technological thing. The idea of having to, you know, having a membership thing that you put in stamps. You know, obviously we can automate this, you know, with tech, you know, electronic kind of stuff nowadays. But this really is not a feature in American life. The idea of all these, there's many multiple, and people would have almost, I don't know, wallets or whatever you want to call them, with a bunch of these kinds of things. It's not just like a library. We're used to like a library card, a driver's license. Now back in these days, driver's license didn't have pictures on them in America. At least I don't think mostly. A lot of them were just, you know, they had your name and other information on it, but they didn't necessarily have a picture. The level of the idea that you have a booklet and multiple booklets, and this isn't even like for rations. Now, yeah, you had booklets and things like that during the war in America for rationing kind of thing. But the idea that you have, and this is, you know, party membership, is just foreign to us Americans, and that's sort of why I'm including this. This is obviously dealing with Sudetenland as part of that chain, but I've been collecting these for various organizations, and so just something that's alien to us. And I don't think that this is common in places like United Kingdom and France, that you would carry it, whether you carry this one around your party membership. You're probably going to carry it around more in National Socialist countries, you know, once you know you're, you know, approved that you're loyal, and they have these other kinds of things as well as their passes and whatnot. Just sort of odd to us, and so I don't know how you think of it today, Germans, but this is odd. Okay, IG Farben, of course, is a major company in Germany. They're still going, and people, at least in America, know Bayer Aspirin. It's their major chemical company. As I'm reading now, the Nazis... Well, there's a group of Nazis that don't like a lot of... They don't necessarily hate the company or anything, but they want to really get back to natural chemicals, including natural pesticides and natural organic farming. I know I mentioned this in an earlier episode, and that kind of stuff, as opposed to, you know, artificial chemical fertilizers or poisons and other things. So there's a little bit of a conflict there, but it's not a major thing. But so let's see. We can put in a little bit more effort to get, this is specifically on some of their medicine and whatnot, getting some combat medicine and just general medicine gain or no need. We'll do that. And part of what I'm doing with all of that is IG Farben and its medicine. It didn't develop penicillin. That's, I don't know if that's British or American, but it was basically available to the Americans or whatever, and I think the British got some. But they were ahead of a lot of these other nations around them that were, for the time being, I would call first world nations, relatively so. And it just is part of like why Germany is more than it is, or more than just, you know, Poland, which, you look at the size of Germany, you look at the size of Poland, you know, just on geographical landing, Poland's almost as big, it looks to me, you know, so, but it's industrialization, it's technologization, you know, technologies of medicine at that point. Okay, what are we doing here again? Oh, artillery brigades. Okay. So we got the generic artillery brigade upgrade. Well, let's do heavy artillery brigade upgrade. Get that one done. Now that it's 38. We're almost to 500 ICs, and in sometime, I think in March, we'll have the opportunity to get Austria in. Okay, the Philip Holtzmann West Wall work. Now, as I've for a long time known, I almost said always known, well, not always, but that the big builder for the West Wall was Organization Todt and all this, but they also contracted with other construction firms as for building of the West Wall and different elements of it. One of the major ones, at least the biggest one that I've so far come across, is the Philip Holtzmann company, which we noted earlier for a few other major production things, but I came across this sort of medal for the company that had struck for working on it, so we can continue building the West Wall here, which is not directly related to giving, don't think, any actual the forts, but it just gains industry and industrial zone and giant infrastructure project gain. And oh, that pushed us over for there, so we want to stop that. projects. And we get more research. More. Okay, so we're all caught up there, or researching or caught up to the year date. Transport. Oh, let's do this. Passenger ships approved. No mentioning that. These guys, load them on board ship. We're gonna take them back. Here. Königsberg. I just figure since they're here, they got a heavy artillery, anti-aircraft, a little bit of troops up on the defensive. Now let's look at revolt risk. Okay, I'm good with that. Few marginal areas. We got a little, the rest is green, so that's doing well. Okay, medium artillery upgrade. That is here, which is grayed out, so we will shift to anti-tank upgrade. And road network advance. Construction, and we're going to stop that, and that we will move to anti-aircraft upgrade. Okay, Edmund Schussneth wants to meet with Hitler. I think we already sort of did this in an earlier version, but it's, not firing again just because replay didn't fire before. Okay, and this is, yes, road network. We're going to get this and pay for it now. Yeah, up until August, 1% of ICs, which will help us. Come on, keep going up. Up, going up. And how we're doing with other production, or with production. Okay, so we are getting much of that done. A lot of upgrade, and we need to bring that down. That is hurting our ability, I think, to get Austria in. Okay, and this we don't need. Take this down to 100. Mark thereabouts. That will do the consumer goods, because we need to get that, I think, below it to below 2. Revolt risk or dissent because of the building our party headquarters. I'll mention building party headquarters. Hasn't grown yet, but we can see imperial seat of government plus 10% there. Road network, so we can see national unity is the same. But organization regain rate is improved. But we already have other benefits too from it, just from having the tech that's existing. Agricultural advance. That'll help us, of course, with manpower. Okay, well, we've got a few things here. How are we doing with? Okay, let's do medium anti-tank aircraft. Guns. And we have a bit more. No, we don't. Okay, we'll do that. And armor unit command and control. Now here, special treatment, strength. Well, let's do damage control first. That'll affect the stuff already built. Now we need to sell more. Let's see if we can do some to other nations. You have money. Let's see, okay. Okay, that would be nice. But I know they'll go away once you don't have any money. Japan, okay. Let's see if Japan will go for some supplies. No. France. If France will go for some supplies. No. Finland wants supplies, eh? Sometimes I think they just have a stockpile of things like supplies, so they stop producing them or shift production to or more production to something else. So the AI doesn't really want to fly it. It's just not. Oh, okay. Gonna make sure I'm clicked on Turkey. No, it doesn't have it. I think that's the case in some places. Well, let's also try the U.S. There we go. Okay. And Sweden, fuel for money, sure. Deep battle doctrine, good. We can fight deep into the enemy's rear. Or whatever. Yeah, medium artillery. I don't know how much we're going to use the mixed support units, but I'm at least going to get them sort of up there. The Wilhelm Gustloff is finished. It's at least to my knowledge, the first purpose-built cruise liner. As I've said, the difference between an ocean liner and a cruise liner. An ocean liner takes passengers to one place and drops them off, picks up a different set of passengers and bring them back. Cruise liner picks up that set of passengers, goes on a cruise, comes back with the same set of passengers. Sort of a difference. Both ships are designed for comfort of the passengers, generally speaking. Where you get the major difference, at least in my understanding is, and obviously somewhat changes over time, there are a lot of people that are taking ocean liners or, going across the ocean, that are looking for cheap transport. So they're looking for sort of minimum rooms, minimum whatever, just they want to get to America, or they want to get to South America, or they want to, they're, just going to India or going to China for business or what, to try to get a job out there. And they don't have a lot of money, so they just look sort of cheap but effective, passenger service. Where all the people on the Wilhelm Gustloff and ships like it are looking for a good time. So I'm sure they have, first class, the Führer, sort of like the presidential room, the Führer room or whatever, that's, a big, huge suite. And then I'm sure they have smaller cubbyhole sort of cabins. And they may have different classes of dining room or something. I don't know. I don't think they do, because you remember the National Socialists were at least pushing for a certain level of egalitarianism, much less class distinction. And you got to sort of remember, people, I'm an American, so we don't really have classes. Oh, and very much don't really have them out here in California. We do have different ethnic groups, but, if you speak the right type of English, it's sort of, that's your class distinction here in California, if you will. If you have a very heavy foreign accent, it could be from anywhere in the world, and particularly non-European, but so if like a very heavy Chinese accent, or if you have a California accent like me, you're going to be treated differently. But both people could be equally racially Chinese. Kind of keep this sort of non-controversial here. So a Chinese American who has my sort of accent and the Californian, and you speak in a relatively way, you're just fine. But even though we have sort of that to a degree, we don't have a class identity. We really don't. And like I say, I've visited Europe a bit and lived in Britain for almost 6 months, and it's still being there, but knowing Britain, how class identified people are, and how and it's not regional. I mean, there is regional in Britain identifications, but just working class, farming class, if you will, is distinct, from urban stuff. Middle class versus upper class. Just that sort of class identity. And I know Britain better than I know Germany, but I know there's class identities in there. And how it's sort of looked badly upon, because you're rejecting your class, to improve your language skills. I remember listening to some audio that they were playing. It was sort of early Margaret Thatcher when she first gets elected to Parliament versus Margaret Thatcher as Prime Minister. She changes her speaking repertoire into a sort of Oxbridge or whatever you want to call it type of English. Now, me speaking English in Britain, at least most of the people claim to understand me well enough, where they sometimes said they had trouble understanding some Americans. But I'm sort of outside of their system, so I'm an outsider, and so I don't plug into any a class distinction to them, and I'm sort of an outsider American, and so I was not accepted as one of them because I'm not one of them, but I'm sort of accepted, at least with the people that I knew, and it was different class distinction from nobility to various working sort of classes, but it's sort of the acceptable American cousin, if you will, or whatever kind of thing. Oh, you're an American, and oh, you're staying here, living here, and so they were very friendly, very welcoming, and all that kind of stuff, and and I was dealing with, well, don't want to go into too much, but various sort of cultural groups, particularly in Scotland, and very friendly to their sort of cultural expressions and stuff. So I was a friendly outsider, a friendly person who has ancestry. I'm generically from all over Britain, but specifically I was working with the Scottish stuff. So one of their brethren that had moved overseas and that kind of stuff. So that's how they sort of looked upon me. And so, but I was aware that, but not aware in the way that to fully understand the ideas or viewpoints of them, and the idea that, oh, you're learning to speak better English, so you're rejecting us and trying to move up. And it's sort of, which I find is odd. I find that sort of an odd idea that you're bettering yourself, and then the people where you come from, and all you're doing is, say, going and getting a better education now, and then speaking with a posh accent or something. Does that mean that you're rejecting the working class background that you are? I don't know. Maybe you are, but maybe you're just trying to better yourself, but you still have buddies that aren't. So I don't understand it. Like they, I've sort of observed it a bit, but I don't understand it like they do. Well, the Nazis were sort of trying to do some of that as well, in the sense of trying to get rid of a lot of class distinction. Not that they were being levelers in the sense of like the Soviets or others that are trying to tear down the rich people or tear down the elites. The Nazis were going to rebuild society, so they were going to destroy society and rebuild it. Now, you might be an elite from the old order and end up being an elite in the new order once the full Nazi revolution had happened after World War II had ended and things. So they were going to rebuild society. They weren't going to maintain the old Kaiserreich, you know, the Wilhelmina sort of old aristocracy in its old position. They were going to build a new kind of thing, but they were trying to get rid of that sort of class distinction and the idea of a cruise ship, that workers are on the cruise ship and they were going to be, say, eating in the same dining room as, you know, someone from the middle class or someone from the upper classes that would be there. Now, like I say, I'm sure, because I know a little bit from, you know, party bosses or you know, they were, you know, sort of party elites that were traveling on. I'm sure they had some better rooms and various, you know, the portholes. You know, did you have a room up? You know, where was your rooms and whatnot. So I'm sure there's a distinction between, you know, either how much you're paying or, you know, what sort of, you know, networking party boss connections are to get better accommodations. But they were trying to get rid of the idea of, you know, third class, second class, and first class dining rooms and swimming pools and that type of stuff. But there was still going to be, obviously, differences between the groups as to, you know, what kind of liquor you're buying or whatever it might be. But they're trying to bring this out as will be fun to go on, not a hardship to endure, like to get to America or to, you know, you're going to have a job somewhere in the colonial empire. You want to get out there safely, but, you know, it's just something you're going to sort of endure. Now, this is a fun, happy time ship, and that's sort of what is the distinction and what the Nazis were doing. Now, of course, we brought air travel down so cheaply that it's no longer the time it takes to travel across the Atlantic and all of the people you have to pay to, you know, man the ship, to run the ship, that it's no longer, you know, economically reasonable to do moving people that way. So, at least for the great bulk of people, so they move them with jets now. So we've lost the idea of that. Still find, like I think I said before, you know, various liner type passenger ships like Jeddah here too, so you can go to Mecca. I think that's Mecca, or no, yeah, maybe somewhere up here. Wherever. You know, coming from, you know, for the Hajj, coming from Africa and other stuff. So you get these guys, you know, they're just sleeping rough on the decks and whatnot. So you still get some of that for short distances in some parts of the world, and I'm sure that there's that kind of stuff going around Indonesia and other places like that. But for most of us, it's who are traveling around, you know, by sea is no longer now a fun time activity, no longer a need to transport. But so just sort of the changing world, and the Nazis were doing that. Okay, so we're going to look inside, and so as you can see here, you know, the idea of this is more of a sitting room and this is a dining room, and that's my understanding is you know, in a pool is sort of all classes together in the common areas. Where if you go in near where I live in Long Beach here, is you have the Queen Mary, which I've been on it many times. Though it's been many years since I've been on there, but they very much had class distinctions as to what dining rooms you were going to be allowed into by which ones you're there. Okay, money, rare materials, 6. How much money we're bringing in? 11. Decline. We're going to decline all of these. Yeah. Rare materials, rare materials. Okay, we're going to take this opportunity to end the episode here. I want to thank you so much for watching. I want to thank you for liking the videos. It does help. And of course, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Love to see you around more often. And also, I want to hear from you. So give me questions, comments, suggestions, ideas, corrections, whatever you can think of. Tell me about yourself. I don't know. So please post comments. So see you next time for more parts of